because entrepreneurship is probably one of the things that's going to save South Africa's economy. I think we need small businesses, and we need the small business to grow into large businesses. We do need our own corporations that are from here, and they start off with a small business, right? But I do think that we need business people to go into universities, to go into communities, and really speak about how to run a business. Let's put away the theory, let's put away the textbooks. Let's really talk about the day to day, because the day to day and reading uh, Josh Kaufman's personal MBA book, hey, let me tell you, those things are worlds apart.
Welcome to the next episode of Frankly Speaking, where we speak frankly about managing your money, finances, and investing and saving. I'm Cassie Nudal. I'm head of growth at Frank, and I'll be your host. And with us today, we have a very special guest and a dear friend of Frank in the studio, Nicolette Mashile, also known as the Financial Bunny. Nicolette is a television talk host, a YouTuber, a serial entrepreneur, which is why we have her today. And she's built her media empire by empowering South Africans to talk more openly about their money, take control of their personal finances, and leap for their goals. Welcome, Nicolette. It's so good to have
Thank
you.
you so much, Cassidy. I cannot wait to have a frank conversation.
So, what we're going to be talking about today and in this episode, in the spirit of Women's Month, we're going to look at how women can find other ways to earn money to supplement their income. We are going to look at investing in a business versus investing in funds and other avenues. And then we're also going to look at the financial realities of building a business. It's not all fun and games, which I'm sure you're going to tell us. So to kick us off, for anyone who doesn't know your story, what was your first entrepreneurial venture and how has your business empire grown from there?
Sure, you're taking me a couple of years back. I think back in 2012, my then partner and I decided to start a company called Cool Kids Coaching. And basically, what we were at a sports school, and one of the requirements for all of the streams at the college was that you needed to get some in service training or some type of internship for you to get your hours done, right? And half of the kids in our college did not know where exactly to go to be able to find this work. So we decided that we were going to go to different types of companies that would take in these types of students. We went around to gyms, we went around to sports centers, we went to sports advertising agencies, and we realized that actually we didn't have a relationship with those guys. So they didn't really know who we were, where we came from. You know, we're not recruiters, so it was a bit awkward for us to be able to do. But I had remembered that when I was in varsity at Rhodes University, I was actually coaching at Victoria Girls High School. And I said to my partner, you know what? I know for a fact that schools need student coaches. The reason being is that a lot of the teachers don't want to stay behind after school and still have to coach mini hockey or mini cricket, you know, and they just, sometimes you're just a teacher. You're not really interested in the extramural activities, right? So I was like, and also, it's difficult for the schools to hire somebody full time simply because it just does not make sense. I mean, if you're a netball coach, you're not going to be coaching netball throughout the year. So what they do is they will hire them part time. And I was like, you know what? Let's see if we can actually partner our schools that we're working at with some of the students that are at the school. So we started off with one school and we were like, listen, we can get you rugby coaches, top of the best. And we did. So we started our business like that. And basically, we were like a little agency which was placing sports coaches or sports coordinators or referees into different jobs. And that was my first business. And you know what? It did so well. However, I was not ready for the realities of running a business because that's a whole different ballgame. Starting a business, getting a good idea sometimes is the easy part. I know a lot of people won't agree with that, but identifying a business idea is not as difficult as getting it actually going and maintaining it. And especially when you earn your first salary or not salary or your first business income, and all of a sudden you relax. Now you're lax, you don't do business development, you're not looking out for the risks that come with it. So yes, I think that's where I started. It was a good learning for the types of business that I'm running today. And today I'm doing quite a number of stuff. I also learned to differentiate between service and product, which is a huge thing because service and product businesses are not the same, but also B2B and B2C are different. You know, when you are servicing business clients who you need to actively go to them to advertise versus when you are getting consumer clients, it's very different. With consumer clients, I can put it on my WhatsApp and people can get interested and they'll be like, okay, no, we want your product or we want your service. With B2B, you can't put on your WhatsApp unless if you've got your decision makers on your WhatsApp. You probably have to use places like LinkedIn. You have to go directly to their companies. You've got to email them directly. So it's a little tricky, but you learn on the journey. Yeah.
You make such a good point there, and I want to go back to that just now. But before I do, I want to know, you obviously talk about how it was really difficult to get it up and running. The idea was easy, but the launching was hard. Was it easier or more difficult than you expected it to be? Like, did you feel prepared going into that first business?
So I guess I'm a talker, right? And the first business we started required a lot of talking and a lot of selling, right? Selling what we thought we could do, selling what we really wanted to do. So it was much easier than what I thought. And I guess that's what happens when you've got a good business idea or you've got a good product, right? The product sells itself, or the service that you're offering sells itself. The difficulty came with actually running this business, like understanding the risks that are associated. And I'll give you an example. You are sitting in whatever you are doing at 1:30 in the afternoon, and practice is supposed to start, and you get a call from the sports director and they're like, your coaches are not here. And you're like, what do you mean they're not there? So you call the coach says, oh, sorry, I forgot to tell you I have an exam. Excuse me, did you not know about the exam the day before? Or the taxi broke down, or there's no taxi to get to the school. So those types of things are the things we never really thought would happen. You know what I mean? We never had the foresight for the risks that were associated. And with that, you start getting reputational damage. You start building this reputation that your coaches are not reliable. They don't make it to work, and it's on you. The reality is the sports director or the school is going to call you as the entrepreneur to say, but you promised us, you sold us a big game when we sat with you in the meetings. You said they're gonna get here. So now you start thinking, okay, how do I was now coaching hockey, netball, rugby, everything, athletics. I was going everywhere because if somebody drops, a coach drops, I need to make up, I need to be there to coach those kids. So it's also because you're not just disappointing the school, you're disappointing the kids. So you've got a whole chain of people. Parents are also there, and especially in private schools. Listen, parents in private schools do not want manga business. They want you to be there when you say you're going to be there. So those were, I think, yes, it was much easier rather than what I thought, but the running of it was hard.
And it sounds like it was super full on right from the get go. For someone who is thinking about maybe doing like a side hustle, building their business on the side while they continue with their full time work, I mean, do you think it's possible? Do you think were you working full time on something else at the same time? How did you fit that in?
Yeah, look, I was at school actually. I was still in college. I was still trying to get my sports management diploma. And let me tell you, it is hard. Because remember, your clients, and this is the funniest thing about clients, right? Clients all think they're the only client that you've got. So when they want an answer, you must drop everything you are doing to respond to them. Now I'm sitting in class, I'm writing an exam. It's an hour of writing an exam, and in that hour, someone is pinging my phone, but I can't get to my phone because you're not allowed to touch your phone in an exam. So it is really difficult to run. I know we push side hustles, and we're very keen on people starting side hustles, but I don't think we speak enough on how difficult it really is to run a side hustle while you are studying, or while you are working, or while you're doing something else, while you're a mom. It's very, very hard. It's not an easy journey, and you actually have to get into a cycle of time management and effective time management, which sometimes also is difficult because you can just get thrown a curveball at any point. So after that business, and I kind of did my degrees, and I ended up working in an advertising agency. I learned something very quickly, and that's called a status document. And I can tell you now, the reason why I can run 7 businesses at this point is simply because I have what is called a status document. And literally 5 o'clock in the morning, when I pop my eyes open, I don't get out of bed, but I go through each single business and give myself a to do action for every single business. So it really is about finding the flow for yourself, finding what works. The problem with also creating a action list like that is that, let's say for instance, for the boutique, I need to go to Dragon City, or I need to go to or sit on Shein or wherever to find the clothes, or Locker, or whichever one of my suppliers. It means that if, for instance, I'm working with Frank and Frank sends me something like, please send a script for our next video, it means that I either need to drop this one that I'm busy with and attend to this one, or I have to kind of disappoint Frank and push them to the end of the day. And again, because clients sometimes want you to respond quickly, it's oh, Cassidy, it's hard. But you know what? It is fulfilling. Yeah.
It sounds it. You make me feel tired just hearing your to-do list for the day. But then going back to that, because I guess on the service side of things, your clients are very demanding. On the product side, you maybe have a little bit more leeway in terms of, deciding what your priorities are and your pace of things. With that in mind, for somebody completely new to entrepreneurship who's starting their very first business, do you think that there's a recommendation in terms of product versus service, B2B versus B2C, that's easier or more difficult to get into?
Yeah, look, yes, I think so. I think product is far more difficult than service, and I'll tell you why. Product, and I'll give you very practical examples. Right now, I've got my kiddies books, right? So I'm selling kids financial literacy books. And from our learnings, we realized that there's a certain type of book you need to push out. Parents are expecting a certain level of quality for them to be interested in your product, right? So we went hardcover for our books. So they look amazing. We went a full on, competent illustrator. She's expensive. And so you've got a big capital outflow that comes out, because putting together a product is very, very expensive, depending on the type of product you want to put out, right? And who you are, I guess. I'm a Virgo, so I'm very pedantic about, finishes and what things look like and what am I putting out there, especially if my name is attached to it. So granted, okay, so you've got the capital outflow issue that's going to be a big issue. Then we need to print these books, and all of a sudden you are told that to print one book, it's 400 rand. And you're like, how much am I going to sell it at if it's 400 rand to print a unit? So then they say to you, okay, if you print larger quantities, you can get the unit cost going down. But the problem with that is now I'm printing 5,000 copies of books and I've got 15 orders. So, so you can sit with a lot of stock. Yeah, so that's the issue. So you sit with this bunch of stock. Now you've got to advertise and market. And a lot of entrepreneurs, where they fail, is that when they're doing their pricing, what we do, or many of us, is we price based on input costs. And the input cost is, okay, for instance, with the books, I'm looking at the unit price, I'm looking at the illustrator, and I'm looking at my time that it took for me to be able to do all of those things, right? The issue that I don't cost for is the cost of sale. And the cost of sale is, how much does it cost me to be able to sell this product? So how much is the marketing, the time that I sit putting it on WhatsApp, all the statuses, all the little flyers that my graphic designer's got to do? All of those things are going to count, because at the end of the day, that is what it costs you to put together this product and to actually sell it. So I think product is quite hard. I do think that service is a lot easier. The only difficulty with service is that you need to be a trusted name or a trusted brand. So you've got to build the brand equity first, It's not always going to be easy. No one is always going to give you a chance. And I think when it comes to service, you need to build on your mentorship, you need to build on your networking, you need to build on your relationships, because it is a Cassidy who's head of growth at Frank, who knows Nicolette does graphic design. Okay, let me give Nicolette a chance. You know what I mean? Based on our tick list at Frank in terms of hiring, she does qualify. Let me give her a chance. But most times you've got that one chance and you must kill it. You know what I mean? But then again, it's how do I price? How do I not create a precedence that my service prices are low? How do I get in? So I think it's yeah, neither one is easy. It's just really about who are you? Can you? And I always say the biggest thing about business is not your product or your service, it's client management. That is probably your biggest thing is, can I manage my customers? Can I manage my clients? And if you can do that, you can go into service or product, whichever one suits and floats your boat.
It's a great tip. Okay, so now say that you definitely want to go into product or even into service, but you know you need to, upskill with education, or you need to get a certain amount of equipment, etc., and you need some capital. What is your advice for somebody who needs to raise that capital? Is that something that you think one should, invest and save up yourself? Do you borrow? Do you get an investor? What's your thinking around that and your experience?
So I'm very iffy about that. I don't enjoy sourcing capital at the beginning. I think a lot of us worry that capital is like our biggest need when it comes to businesses. And capital is not always going to be your biggest need. Sometimes, and I always say this, no amount of money or marketing or funding is going to make up for a bad service or a bad business, or a mediocre business or a mediocre service. So I do think that before you start thinking about capital, think about what it is that you want to put out there, and think about how much is it going to cost to put one out, and rather focus on putting one out and getting the capital to do one thing. You know what I mean? So, and if you look at it that way, it becomes so much more easier to be able to source capital, because when somebody asks you, you're not looking for R1,000,000, you're looking for 10,000, for instance. And if you're looking for 10,000, then your opportunity or your options become far more larger. People can borrow you 10,000. You know what I mean? The bank can lend you 10,000. But when you come and you're like, I need R1,000,000, the bank is like, R1,000,000, you need to give us something to be able to give you that R1,000,000. So I think it's important and remember, not all businesses need to be started on the onset, right? I think the other thing is you may need to build a cash cow business first to be able to fund your next business. So I believe in the cash cow method. I mean, our Cool Kids coaching was generally just a cash cow business for us. We were not intending on, growing this thing and making it huge. And it was really a cash cow business because we wanted to do other things. So I think service type of businesses work very well to be cash cow businesses, because it doesn't require a lot of upfront costs. I also do think that your family, your network is your net worth. Your family, your friends should be also your point of contact. And again, it's about asking for a little bit of money, not a lot. And if you're asking for a little bit, you can get a bunch of people crowdfunding for you to be able to get you the money that you need, right? It's R100 per person versus 10,000 Rand per person. So I think people are more than willing to take out R100 if you have a good business case. The next one, I do think it's saving. I think if you really want, I speak to a lot of people and they want to start businesses. Then I ask them, okay, what business you want to start? I want to start selling clothes. I'm like, okay, how much stock do you need? They're like, it's not a lot. Maybe if I can start off with 10 dresses. I'm like, come on, 10 dresses is not going to cost you more than even 10,000 Rand, depending on the dress, of course, that you're looking to sell. So you can save up 10,000. And the problem is that people think, okay, if I'm saving 10,000, for instance, if you're saving 1,000 Rand every single month, it will take you 10 months, right? But how many people have kicked themselves for not starting 10 months later? So it's like starting a degree. People are always like, oh, I want to do 3 years of school. 3 years later, you still have no degree. You should have just started. So for me, it's that thing of smart planning and smart goal setting, is understanding what is my capability, my capacity right now. My capacity is only 1,000 Rand. 1,000 Rand is a good start. You know what I mean? I don't have 10,000 today, but I can have it in 10 months. So why not just start? Just start. And in the next 10 months, I'm going to do everything else that is non-finance to build this business. Getting somebody to give me a look, a Canva, get a look and feel, get a logo, start looking at the clothes you want to sell, go to the shops. Because let me tell you, I've just started a boutique and I should have started doing my research and all of the work 6 months before. Because when the shop is supposed to open and you must stock it up with clothes and you don't know where to stock your clothes, you will lose your mind. But also, you will start buying at people that have higher prices than what you should have been paying because now you're desperate to stock up the shop. And all of a sudden, now the dresses that you should be buying at 100 Rand, you're buying them at 300 each because you're desperate. So I do think take the 10 months, plan, but save for the 10,000 Rand. So I think that's what a lot of us forget, that, things don't have to be a press the button now and it's go. You can really start a business in the next year or the next 10 months or the next 3 years. It's really up to your planning. Then, look, if you're going to go bank for borrowing, credit education. I cannot stress enough credit education. Too many people are borrowing money from the bank. There was a young lady, I was actually doing a coaching session with her, and she had borrowed 200,000. I wanted to cry for her because I was like, girl, 200,000 Rand is a lot of money to borrow for a business. You're not even sure whether it's a good idea. You have not tested the market, So I think credit education is very important if you're going to go bank loans. And then probably the last one is obviously your funding institutions, the likes of your NYDA, the likes of your Gauteng Propeller, your Megas and Pumalang. So it's really just finding how much you need. Some businesses do need an intensive capital output or input. Some businesses don't. So you need to decide where you are and how much you need.
That's awesome. And it's really good to know that there's so many different options, also from a funding perspective. For somebody going in, do you have any advice in terms of resources to tap into, people to speak to? Is there some kind of like mentorship program to talk to other female entrepreneurs that have been there, that can give you advice about how much you need? And like, because it feels like every business is so unique, right? You need to think of all these small things going into it. And it would be nice not to have to learn it the hard way every time, but to actually get some advice from someone who's been there. Have you found any communities like that people can tap into, that women can tap into?
Yes and no. I think I think what we need to I think we need to change the idea of mentorship or the definition of mentorship. I think in South Africa we've got a very skewed idea of what mentorship is supposed to look like and what it's supposed to be. I think we're very skewed in terms of our business communities and what we want to share and what we don't want to share. So, if you want to start a business and you need a business community, you need to be an open person. You need to be an open book. You need to be able to walk up to Cassidy and say, listen, I am starting a fintech, and you know what? I have no idea how to grow this business. I think it's a really good idea. Cassidy, help me. I think, and then you got to tell Cassidy what the business is, because Cassidy can give you advice. But if Cassidy doesn't really know what it is that you want to do, she cannot give you succinct advice on what you want to do. Many of us are afraid to share our business ideas because somebody's going to steal them. Let me tell you something. Nobody's got time to implement your ideas. They've got their own bunch of ideas in their heads. They're not trying to implement your ideas. And even if they do implement or steal your ideas, which happens a lot, I'm not going to dispute that, right? The reality is they don't have the source. They don't have the thought process that you've got. You can literally start another business in the same line. You can start, the person who starts an idea is not always the best. Like, let's be fair, they're not always the best. In fact, you can look at their business and say, okay, I'll improve on this, I'll improve on this, I'll improve on this, I'll improve on this. So I do think that, yeah, the mentors are there, but many of us are afraid to open our mouths and ask people. And when we do ask them, we're not very clear on what it is that we want. We go there and we say, Cassidy, please be my mentor. And Cassidy's sitting there thinking, oh my goodness, with my work and all of the things I need to do, I ain't got no time to be mentoring someone. I myself need a mentor. So people are busy. So ask your questions directly. And business people love to talk about their businesses. There's no business person who doesn't want to talk about their business. Business people love to talk about their war stories and how difficult it was, coming up and doing this and doing that. So I think speak to people. That's step number one. But when you do speak to people, it's not a hello, hi, how are you doing? How was your day? Ish, I really like your business. No, get to the point. I think get to the point. Ask what you want. But also, I think too much, social media has created a very big issue for many of us. Social media people go on social media and they put their brand out there, the way they want to be seen and the way they want to be perceived. Now, that does not mean those are the only entrepreneurs that are out there. There are many entrepreneurs. Many of us grew up around them. The mama down the road who sells, the fat food in the morning. The uncle who goes and fetches children in his scholar, transport. The aunt in your family who makes soaps or candles, or she runs a pottery school. I think we've got a lot of entrepreneurs, but we want the ones that are glittered, the ones that have polish around them because social media has done that, or they've won awards. Some awards people enter, and some entrepreneurs just don't enter. It doesn't mean they lack, in entrepreneurship. They're doing really well. So I think we also need to start checking on our qualification list of who we think is a great entrepreneur and who we can learn from. It's not always the celebrated people. Some people really can just teach the basics. I think if you want to learn the art of selling, it's the people that are the vendors, the street vendors that are on the road who will teach you the art of selling. If you want to understand client management, it's not always the entrepreneur that's going to teach you client management. Go to the advertising agencies and speak to the guys who are running big businesses, who are heading up client services. They will teach you how to manage clients. If you're talking customer care, look at the companies that are running, direct B2C businesses, and they're going to do customer service. Ask them, how do you get through to a difficult customer? I think entrepreneurship mentorship is everywhere. You've got to know what it is that you're looking for. So you got to sit and identify in your business, where is my weak point? And if my weak points, for instance, like I know my biggest weak point is managing employees. I am struggling. I have no inkling of how to manage employees and run a business at the same time. So I know I need to go to somebody who's built their employees from 0 to 10 to 20 to 30 and say, take me through day number 1 of your first employee. Take me through day number 100 when you now had 3 employees. That person will teach me far more about employees. So I might not like their business. I might not think their business is in line with what I do, but the part that I want is the managing of employees. Teach me. So I think you've got to build the community for yourself. And don't be opportunistic, but at the same time be very direct.
Yeah. It's great advice. And it feels like there could be a mentor, in your sense of the word, around every corner in that way, which is awesome. Opens up that network. Okay, cool. I want to wrap us up, but I want to finish off by pretending that you have a time portal taking you back to pre-girl boss Nicolette before you started your first venture. What do you wish that she had known going into it?
That you can make money. I think what I would have known is that you can make money and understand money as quickly as possible. I think nobody goes into a business hoping the business does not work. And because you do not hope that the business doesn't work, it means that you hope that the business does work and it makes you lots of money. But are you ready for that kind of capital? Are you ready for that kind of revenue in your business and those types of profits? I think many of us are not ready. Many of us don't have a good relationship with our funds, our money, and many of us don't know how to reinvest. I was actually very lucky that in the first business, the kids coaching business that we started, we actually had the good sense to take some of our profits and buy Nelson Mandela coins. I don't know why. I cannot tell you who made that decision, but today we still have those coins and we know that they're worth far more than what we had bought them at. So, business is about that, because the many businesses, we don't build businesses for them to die, but change in society can kill a business. You look at your meter taxi industry, you look at your what was Mr. Video, whatever was called, streaming then came in. So there's a change in society can really make your business obsolete. I don't even remember what it's called. So I think it's important to understand that your business must reinvest and your business must buy assets. That's very key, so that the business, at least if it needs to now transform into something else, you have already started doing that. I think there's the guy who runs that Valuetainment. It's a YouTube channel called Valuetainment. I can't remember his name. He always speaks about, you must, as a business person, already think about what is your fourth next move. not even your next move. What's your fourth next move? And you got to look at the probabilities of what could happen. One, your business could really shoot up and grow, and you need to scale. And scaling is also one of the hardest things that you can ever do in a business, you know? Secondly, you must think, what happens if the business doesn't grow? And now you're sitting with all of the stock that you've bought. What are you going to do with that stock? Thirdly, you must think about, okay, what if the business gets made obsolete because of the industry that you're in? What do I do then? What is my next move? So he says you've got to think 4 steps ahead in terms of how do you run a business. I think that should have been something that I was taught. I don't know who was going to teach me because I guess the other difficult thing is that in high school or when you do varsity, you taught more theory than actual practice. So it's yeah. What I think would be great is if business people could dedicate some time to really going into universities, to schools, and talking, because entrepreneurship is probably one of the things that's going to save South Africa's economy. I think we need small businesses, and we need the small business to grow into large businesses. We do need our own corporations that are from here, and they start off with a small business, right? But I do think that we need business people to go into universities, to go into communities, and really speak about how to run a business. Let's put away the theory, let's put away the textbooks. Let's really talk about the day to day, because the day to day and reading uh, Josh Kaufman's personal MBA book, hey, let me tell you, those things are worlds apart. Yeah.
Yes, reality is very different. Completely agree.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us on the channel, Nicolette. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you and to get all of those golden tips and nuggets of insight from your own experience. Really, really valuable. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're going to pop links to your YouTube and to your website into the descriptions, whether you're listening to the podcast or watching the video. And if you enjoyed this chat, please also subscribe to Frankly Speaking to hear more of these frank discussions around money. And yeah, thank you so much to all our listeners and watchers for joining us. Until the next episode of Frankly Speaking. Cheers.